on
opinion.
this computer. Welcome back to another episode of The Associates. Today we have a great show for us. Sorry, for you guys. I mean, we're the only ones
The
who's watching
special,
anyway, right? So
another
it's like,
special guest. Yeah,
we
I'm
have
actually
an
kind of excited
awesome
for our
guest.
guest this week. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I said I'm excited for our guest this week.
Yeah, he's got a lot of experience. He's on the team. He's done, he's been working for companies. He's been in real estate for a long time. He's been here and there. He's done like property management stuff like that. So it's good to get an idea of the other side. Like get
100%.
what's
I'm
going
sure
on
he's got
yourself.
some stories for us too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, sure. I didn't even think about that. Good point. Good point. Well, I guess
All you got to do is look up any property management company and see the reviews.
yeah.
They're always terrible.
Oh, yeah. Oh, fair enough.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
people hate on property management, but the reality is, if you live in a condo, most oftentimes you're not going to have to actually deal with the property manager.
That's true. That's true. I mean, he was managing low rise and stuff like that. But anyway, let's get him in here and he can tell us more about himself and we'll go from there. His name is Eugene and let's welcome in him. Let's get him in here. Oh, nice. There we go. Let's let him load up.
Eugene,
Eugene, how's it going?
there he is.
Hey. Oh, we
How you
can't hear
doing?
you. Oh, there you go. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, Eugene.
Um, yeah, so I've my career kind of started in real estate 18 years ago, and I've been doing sales since then, and kind of jumped back and forth between property management and sales. So I've got to experience kind of a wide breadth of the spectrum, and yeah, I'm just excited to be here with you guys and share our wealth of knowledge with our audience.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
We had a few questions for you because, like, since you did manage some properties, right? You were doing rentals. You must have some good stories or some things that have happened while you're there, right?
Oh yeah. Whenever we go out to the bar with friends, we always have the best stories to tell. So I mean, I've seen it all. From hoarders to deaths in the property to all kinds of crazy landlord tenant board experiences. Um, it's a tough gig for investors. A lot of times people make the mistake. They think real estate investment, it's like a slot machine. You just buy the property and you're collecting rent, but there's a whole host of problems that can come along with it, and you really got to know what you're doing and make sure you're working with professionals.
Sure.
So, what company were you working for, Eugene?
I worked for a number of some of the larger institutional investor companies. They manage high-rise buildings. Had portfolios of up to 10,000 apartment units. Couple, my most recent ones were with Park Property Management and Sterling Caramar.
Cool.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
when it comes to like, because since you're dealing with rentals, I mean, like now, we do rentals as well as we all do rentals, right? It's obviously
Yeah.
not the same process that you would have done when you were in the property management. Is there like a more thorough background check, or is it just kind of like, or you guys, always feel like when there's a property manager, they're usually a little more lenient on the tenants than when you
Um,
are doing it compared to like the landlords, right?
yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely a little bit less kind of emotional attachment to it. You're like you have and you're dealing with volume, right? It's not like one unit and you're dealing with one owner who's focused on that one unit. We're trying to fill vacancies for an entire building. But one of the you know key things I've noticed the difference is on the like when I was working with the property management companies, we would pull our own credit reports because we had the systems in place, and that's one area where we would find a lot of fraud. Tenants forging documents, and so here on the sales end of things, when you're working with agents who are representing clients, a lot of times you're getting credit reports from them, and you always kind of have to really take it with a grain of salt and kind of weed through it and make sure that whatever's on the rental application, that sort of paints the picture and that tells a story. And now the supporting documents have to line up and match. And if it doesn't make sense, chances are there's something fishy going on there.
Okay.
So, like with property managers, how does that work? Do you guys get paid, just a salary? Is it paid on the amount of units that you manage? Like, how does that work for property managers normally?
Yeah, so for like when you're dealing with buildings of that size where 50, 100 units plus, they're taking a percentage of the gross revenue. So I mean I've seen that on the smaller scale as well. On the lower end, if you're managing a house, it could be 1 month's rent or 10% of revenues. And obviously the larger the building and the more units, and that number can go down to as low as 3-4% depending on the client and how many units you're managing for them.
Okay. Now I know we were talking last night on the phone, and we were telling me you have a couple of clients that are looking for investment properties. I mean, now that you've had that experience with the rental managing part of it and everything, do you ever offer your services like, hey, I can run this building for you if you need to be, and like, we can make it work? Like, you probably have better insight on what you're looking at when you're looking for investments, right?
For sure. I mean, I definitely can, help guide them. I think, depending on on where the investor is in their journey, I think it's important for them to be more hands-on when they're starting out. If it's their first property, I think it's good experience for them to be more hands-on and really, where the benefit of a property manager comes in is as your portfolio grows and you don't have the time to be able to manage it all on your own, then you can get somebody to help you, sort of responding to those calls. But otherwise, in terms of providing guidance and resources between contractors or help sort of helping to deal with any particular situation, I'm happy to just offer that advice to my clients as part of our service. But and then obviously that offering can expand from there.
So, like, walk me through something logically. So, let's say you're managing a building and there's some sort of repair that needs to be done. What's the process to go through that? Do you go out and then find these contractors who bid and then bring that back to your investor? Like, how does that work?
So are we talking about like a single family home or like a
Oh, let's say
large?
like
No,
a
like
low rise.
let's say, yeah, like an apartment building,
Yeah.
big or small.
Yeah. So I mean, usually like you would have a superintendent or a maintenance manager of somebody of the sorts. Like they would sort of be that initial point of contact. They would go in and look at it. If it's something that they can fix themselves, sometimes the tenant could be saying there's the power's not working or this outlet's not working. It's just a matter of flipping a breaker, right? And so they're kind of trained to do some of the basic troubleshooting. And then once it kind of goes beyond their scope of abilities, we have a roster of approved vendors, within all the different trades available to them. So they would coordinate to have somebody come in and work with the tenant to make sure that it's convenient for them. A lot of times the tenant just wants to get it fixed as quickly as possible. So they obviously they're willing to provide access and they're accommodating. We just try and get in and get out and on to the next one.
For sure,
The
yeah.
one thing with apartment residences and maintenance is there's a lot of volume, right? So it's like that's the main difference between residential and commercial. Commercial, they're very isolated, very unique problems. You have to review the lease agreement and understand who's responsible for what. Whereas with residential, it's always the same problems at a high volume.
Also, you managed residential and commercial buildings.
Right. Yeah. Primarily residential, but there's in any portfolio, there's going to be some commercial as well.
I'm guessing commercial must be easier to deal with too, right? Because it's less problems. Because
It's easier in the sense that it's lower volume and the tenant it's not their own home, like so they're less emotional about it. But however, it is their place of business, and so making sure having it repaired and fixed in a expeditious matter is affects their business. So we want to be as responsible as we can.
okay. I mean,
As a matter of fact, I have, or if you may have seen on the news, I know somebody they own a building in the Junction, and they're having flooding issues. Like one of their tenants. So there's residential on the upper floors and ground floor retail. One of their tenants, the Alpine Group, they're having flooding happening in the basement, and the city, they've identified it's an issue somewhere with the city, and so they're kind of stuck. They're waiting on the city to come and fix this problem. Meanwhile, they haven't been able to serve their customers for a week now, and so they're it's really impacting their business tremendously.
By any chance, is that building on DuPont by any chance?
It's at Dundas on
Dundas?
Dundas. Yeah,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
yeah,
But so I mean, we know the market slowed down quite a bit last year and everything, and we've seen a lot of people unloading their investment properties, right? And with that going on, like we're seeing more and more good deals, like on the triplex and fourplexes and stuff like that. Where do you see that going? Like, how do you feel about the market when it comes to investors? Are you telling them like, hey, people are unloading? Like some of these rents are really low too, so it's like you got to ask yourself how they were sustaining it, right? But
for
where do
sure.
you,
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that. I'm seeing a lot of opportunities. Like you said, people are unloading these investments. They're kind of trying to keep their head above water on their primary residences. And so that's definitely something I'm showing a lot to my investor clients. Specifically, we're looking at larger lots, like where there's an existing bungalow that can either have 2 or 3 units within the existing structure, with the opportunity potentially to add either a laneway or a garden suite. And so what they have then is a number of exit strategies, so they can once they get in, if it's they're able to make the numbers work where they're either cash flowing already, or at the very minimum covering their expenses. That property will appreciate value over time. Rents are growing, and in the future they can decide to either kind of build on top, or tear it down and rebuild completely, or just sit on it and let the cash flow keep coming in every month.
Yeah, I think that's one of the challenges when you look at condos, where there's not really much you can do to add value other than, maybe getting something that's completely dated and then, ripping it down to the studs. But like you said, adding laneway house or, building in equity to a property, it's nearly impossible to do with a condo. Like you're very
Yeah,
limited.
I was just having this conversation yesterday with somebody actually as well. They were asking me about condos, and the one thing I said to them is, with the maintenance fee, with condos, it's always going to suppress the value of the condo. The maintenance fee is always going up every year, and that affects affordability. And there are no other alternative options for exit strategies. You're just hoping for appreciation over time. There's no redevelopment opportunity. And so again, if you have the resources, or even better yet, if it's just an investment and it's not a personal residence. Sometimes people buy investment properties with the idea that maybe one of their kids might move into it in the
For
future, or
sure.
they might downsize. So if that's not part of your consideration, it's just strictly about an investment, I would recommend, find somebody else that you can partner with, and now you can pool your resources together and get into a detached property where you have more options available to you beyond just looking at a small condo.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess, once you start getting into the world of freeholds, with all these other opportunities come, bigger carrying costs and larger out-of-pocket expenses. So, like as you mentioned, I've seen in the past where I've had clients that have bought, condos with the intention to rent them out while their kids are in school, and potentially they'll move into it in the future. And it's more of a passive investment, albeit not with the same kind of upside. But there's a lot of risk, especially if you don't know what you're doing. If it's your first project, putting in a new kitchen, adding building a laneway house, like these are big ticket expenses, right?
For sure. And there's a lot of information available. Somebody who wants to educate themselves, can watch videos online, attend webinars, talk to professionals, and get good advice. I guess somebody who's getting into a condo, if they're buying it because their kids going to school there, and it is more of kind of like a passive investment for them. If it serves that dual purpose, well, my kid needs a place to live while they're going to school, so I might as well buy. the property, I mean, yeah, that makes great sense. But if somebody who's just, it's no other attachment and they're just strictly looking for an investment opportunity, I mean, there's certainly a lot of better options available.
Well, I mean, I remember back in the day, back in 2016, 2017, condos were like the hot ticket item. Like people were buying them up. Every year they're going up like 10%. And like you would see that just keep going. Then I think when COVID hit, that's when I think they just went, and everyone just lost interest in them. It was just insane. Like it was just
Yeah, especially if it didn't have a balcony,
yeah.
and you couldn't go outside, and they have no semblance of outdoor space. Not very attractive.
It's all the units that have they have some sort of
Yeah,
negative to them, like you said. They that they'll face off into the garbage, into the garbage area, or there's a small unit with a really long narrow hallway, which is just kind of not usable square footage. But I got a question for you as a property manager.
yeah.
Why are elevators always seem to be the number one expense with the ongoing maintenance? Like, you ever dealt with elevator contractors? Like, get any insight when it comes specifically to elevators in condos and apartments?
Yeah, for sure. So elevators industry, there's only a few key players.
Otis
And
is a big one.
oh yeah, Otis is one. Coney is another one. There's been a couple newer ones that I've entered recently that have kind of been offshoots, or people working for these other companies, and they went off on their own, and trying to provide alternative options for property owners. But a lot of the companies that they in back in the day when they were building elevators, they were building with proprietary parts, so only they could service them. And so this made it very challenging for property owners when they wanted to do repairs or retrofits. They were kind of tied to that service provider.
Right.
And yeah, elevators are always one of those pain points for residents, because if it's not working, it's impacting your daily life, and there's always interruptions. And yeah,
Long
it's
way down the stairs, eh?
yeah.
But
They get paid well. They get paid really well.
I'll tell you a funny story. Just came to mind. This is like early on when I started. I was living in London, Ontario at the time, and we were managing like the premier student rental building in the city, like right at the corner of Richmond and Oxford, if you're familiar with London. And it's all the kids from Toronto, from Forest Hill, that are they've got expensive cars in the garage, and they're all living in this building. So
Sure.
now there's
like
there's
Markham.
two, so here in the GTA, I mean, people move in and out throughout the year, but in university towns or areas near the schools, there's two main turnover dates. There's May and September. And so every year in May, there's an exodus of students. Um, and so I think it was about 30 or 60 days leading up to May, one of our elevators went down. And this is a big building. I think we were scheduled to have like 60 move outs as of in May. And one of the elevators went down.
How many
And
stories?
it was 19 stories, I
Yeah,
believe,
so you
somewhere.
get
Yeah,
high
somewhere
res.
around there. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Big building. And remember, it's like when you're dealing with students, it's not just one family per unit. It's one unit can have 3 or 4 students, and each one is moving on their own,
Sure.
right? So it's just amplifies the number of tenants in the building. So anyways, one of these elevators went down, and we're working with I think we had to get some part from Texas to get it fixed, and we're hoping to get we have this deadline. Okay, we know people are moving out, we got to get it up and running. And of course, like about a week before the end of the month there, where we're anticipating, we have our bookings back to back to back. We had a huge storm, and the elevator, the motherboard with it, like, so the all the panel was up on the roof, and it got flooded, and it went through the motherboard, and it fried a second elevator, and so we were completely screwed. And like what do you do? Like there's nothing you can. So there's 3 elevators in the building. We always want to maintain at least one available for like everyday people that are, coming and going to use the elevator. Although this building was like 95% students, there were some senior people in the building as well. Like they need so we couldn't reserve that elevator for people to use.
Right.
So people were literally just carrying couches, through the stairwell, and it
Up and
was,
down the stairs.
yeah, it was a sight to be seen for sure. I'll
You
That's
seen
never
those
forget that.
you seen those videos online of people moving in and out, and they'll try to push their sofa over the balcony on like from like the second story or something like that, and just
By
destroy
any
it.
means necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well, I mean that's pretty intense. I mean, I'm sure you probably have some crazy stories like that too, but I just feel like that's the big downside with condos. And even like when you're looking at buying a condo, especially after what just happened with COVID, the lockdown, then the two people maximum, and there's only 3 elevators in there, and they're the slowest elevators ever. And you're in the middle floors, and you got to wait there for 40 minutes for an elevator. No wonder condos aren't going up, right? Like it's
Have you
just insane.
Yeah.
have you guys ever been into that building at the corner of Young and Bloor? I think one Bloor
Yeah,
Street East.
Yeah,
where
Yeah.
yeah.
you push the button and tells you which stack to go to, which elevator
Yeah,
stack to go to.
man, that it's a massive building,
Yeah, yeah.
huge, and there's always a lineup to get, just to get into the elevator. Like you're lining up, and like, when you're in a house, if you have to leave to go somewhere, and you're trying to plan for, okay, I have to leave by this time, and to get, somewhere, like if you're living in a condo, like you need to add an extra 10 to 20 minutes to be able to like get down to your car, and drive out of the garage, and hope that everything's working, and
Hmm.
yeah, it's a
Well, you got to get your private elevator in your penthouse.
Yeah, exactly. So I,
yeah.
I I remember I was watching, it was Monday Night Football. I was watching Monday Night Football, I think in like October, November, and I forgot something in my car, and the game was just about to start. So
Like,
I went
yeah.
down, and then literally while I was coming back up from P4, the emergency button, something like the emergency something in the elevator went off, and then when that happens, it automatically brings out every elevator to the ground floor. So then, of course, they had to do the protocol and call the fire department and make sure. So yeah, it's definitely one aspect of condo living.
You're
So
at the mercy of the
Shit.
elevator.
Another funny story for you guys. I remember walking into one of my buildings one day, and I see the supers that kind of huddled around the security cameras, and they're kind of chuckling to themselves, and they're like, "Hey, Huge, come here, let me show you something." And of course, it was a couple people like late night drunk coming home from wherever, and they're like going at it in the elevator.
Oh shit.
but you guys must
Yeah.
get calls at all times of the day or night, and something goes wrong, and you guys are called to fix it, right? Like it seems like a job where you're on call 24/7.
Yeah. So again, like when you have the larger buildings that have they're able to support staffing models with either a concierge or like full-time live on-site staff. You have kind of a rotating on-call schedule with these people so that they're available for these emergencies. It's a lot more challenging when you have smaller properties, 6 to 12 units or even 20 units, where you can't really afford to give up a unit and pay somebody a salary to be
To
on
live there.
site.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of having, you gotta get creative. Sometimes we would have a tenant in the building who, they're kind of retired, or semi-retired, and they're looking to supplement their income, a little bit, and so they're agreeable to be on call, and they have to be able to respond in emergency situations with kind of like being able to shut the water off to the building, and then call a trade, or turn the power off, like in an extreme situation. So
Seems like a bit of a thankless job too, right? People only calling you when they got problems.
yeah, for sure.
And then I imagine it's always the property manager's fault, regardless of what the issue is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. It's you always get blamed, and um a lot of times, we would try and go above and beyond what's required within the RTA in terms of accommodations and stuff, and it was still never viewed in that light. Like I always used to say, when I was talking to my staff, and I would tell them somebody who's paying, $800 a month for a basement unit versus somebody who's paying $5,000 a month for a penthouse suite, they always start their complaint with the same way. I'm paying this much per month, and
Sure.
so they all have the same expectations, and obviously somebody paying more, probably expects more service or different type of response. But yeah,
So
it can be interesting at times.
I've dealt with some amazing property managers, and I've dealt with a lot of terrible ones. I had some clients that bought a loft with me just a few blocks away, in Five Hannah, and before they moved in, they wanted to redo all the floors. They just didn't like the color. And then, as you know, you have the condo bylaws, and everything has to be submitted and approved. And this process dragged on for nearly 2 months without getting any responses. So a property manager is a huge plus or negative to the residents of that building. And the reality is, you don't really know who you're dealing with until you have an issue. So just one other thing to consider.
Yeah, whenever I'm in a condo building, I always, if I'm standing in the elevator and somebody's there, I'll always ask them, how do you like living here? Are there anything concerns you have or any issues? That's one thing I've learned being in property management. I would always try and go on site and spend time at the buildings because there's only so much a report will show you, or if you're looking at trying to analyze data. But once you're at the property, you get a better feel for what is and isn't going on, and you have an opportunity to ask questions and get more insightful information.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Thank you for giving us all this great information on that. That's like a lot of things I didn't know, and it's good to see. Like, you never really understand until you get the other side of it, right? Like, you're always like, these management companies, they don't know what they're doing, this and that. It's just like, you got to do what you got to do, right? But on another note, today the Feds announced in the U.S. that their interest rates, and it looks like they're holding it. They're saying that they're going to be keeping it at this rate until they feel confident enough with inflation. Now, I know we're in Canada, we've noticed that the market's been picking up, right? Like, it's getting busier. We're seeing more activity. Houses are getting, some houses got 70 showings, not 70, I mean, offers, 70 offers. Some get like 10. I actually just sold a condo in Ajax, and we got like 6 offers or 5 offers, sorry. And we sold over asking, right? So it's just like, it's, we're definitely seeing the market is picking up, and we're like, do you think we're going to get back? Like, how do you think this market's going to end? Do you think we're going to get a busier summer this year, or is it going to slow down again like it was last year?
You want me to pull out my crystal ball and
Of
No, I
course.
want you to pull out you're kind of, I know you're always into the, information. You always seem to know a lot more. You do a little more research than others for sure. So I just wanted to see what your input, where you're not where you're seeing it's going, but just your input with, activity wise, because I work out east and in the central area, and you work out west, right? So how's it out west?
We want you to
Uh, yeah,
make some guarantees.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm more in the central area as well. But yeah, I was in an offer situation last night, and we thought the property was kind of priced, close to where it should be, maybe $100,000 off, and they ended up getting 7 offers. So I didn't see what it ended up selling for. We didn't get it. Yeah, my client was an investor, so they're not emotional. They know that more properties are going to be coming to the market, in the spring. So we'll wait and see what happens. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting time because you do see a little bit of FOMO happening. I see a lot of narrative kind of being pushed by probably a lot of real estate agents that rates are supposed to come down later this year and prices will go up. So, now is a good time to buy, and they're not necessarily wrong. But I kind of question how much of the spike that we're seeing right now is kind of a seasonality. Just generally there's more activity happening in the spring, but in reality, where are we in sort of this long-term trajectory within the overall market? Because yes, rates will presumably come down. Like, we're no longer talking about potential increases. We're that all the headlines are the same. It's rates coming down. It's a matter of when and how many cuts. But I mean, when they do come down, they'll still be higher than what people who are renewing mortgages this year are going to be facing. And so does that, put them in a better situation than they are? I don't think so, right? So you're going to have this mix of people feeling the pressure because, financially and needing to make some tough decisions, and at the same time, buyers kind of recognizing, the opportunity where, prices are discounted. So and long term, they will go up, and so they're looking at, to jump back in right now as well.
Sure. I think on an investor standpoint, you always want to wait a little bit and kind of see what's going on, because they're usually trying to buy it and flip it. But on like the longer term, like you're buying, you're going to stay there. Like a lot of people usually stay 5, 6, 7 years in a
Yeah,
property. And in those 5, 6, 7 years, a lot can happen. I mean, if you notice with the history in Toronto, it's just, going up. I don't know what you think about it, David.
I think that the property is the most important thing. It all starts with the deal. It doesn't really matter what's happening in the market. Doesn't matter what's happening with prices or the economy, because if you can get the right property for the right deal, that's really all that matters. Now the question is, where does the market go and what happens with rates? But all three of us have seen it. The premium, turnkey, ready to move in properties are still selling. They're still driving the most amount of traffic, the most amount of showings. So, back in COVID, that was probably the time to sell your house on a main street, to sell your house in a busy intersection, because everything was selling.
Yeah.
Now buyers are a little bit pickier. There's a little bit more risk, and you got to be willing to look at a lot of different deals, find out what the right one is, find the motivated sellers, and then you got to have, like Eugene was saying, you got to have a contingency plan. What happens if rates do go up? What happens if prices fall? What happens if your tenant stops paying? There's still a lot of people with a lot of money in this city, and I think, again, that's what I would summarize it at, is it starts with the deal. That's the most important, and then everything kind of works backwards from that.
So are we
yeah.
saying
I
it's a
think
blimp, Eugene? Sorry, is this a blimp for the year? We're just gonna get a little
I thought
spin?
Eugene just guaranteed home prices are going up. You heard it
Oh
here
shit,
first.
you're right.
long term, long term.
Guarantee. I heard a guarantee. If anybody's housing value goes down, we'll put you in contact with Eugene
I,
directly.
I want I want to rewind the tape on that one. Yeah. But yeah, I think the ones that are getting hurt right now are the speculator investors, right? The ones that bought on spec and not factoring in, like only looking for appreciation and the market
Right.
turn, and now, yeah,
But on that note, if you haven't, like I was, the Mattame just came out with some new inventory in Pickering, and I think in also Barrie, and they sold out in like the first weekend. Like it was insane. They sold out. I was showing some properties to a client in those areas, and then on Sunday morning, when even after I heard it was sold out Saturday night, there's still a massive line of people waiting outside. So there's still a lot of people speculating that the market's gonna,
yeah.
start
Is that
skyrocketing.
is that detached homes that they're selling?
Yeah,
Right.
detached in
So
Pickering.
if you were to compare their prices compared to what's for sale right now as a resale, how would that compare? Did you look
Oh,
at
I
that?
didn't I didn't take a look at it, but I mean, I'm
20%
assuming
probably.
it's probably going to be more expensive. I wouldn't.
30% more,
That's usually
Yeah,
what it is. Yeah.
approximately.
right. So that, I know a lot of people made a lot of money over the last 10 to 20 years, and a lot of agents became superstars, or just by getting their clients to buy pre-construction. I've never pushed for pre-construction because you could always buy an existing property across the street for a lot less than what than what you're paying for pre-con. And if you're buying and you're able to make the numbers work, like that property is going to go up, sort of at the similar rate. Kind of everything rises with the tide. So in 5 years' time, when that property is finished being built, your across the street will also have appreciated. But at least when you bought it, the numbers made sense for you at that time, and plus you're already putting away some money towards your principal over those 5 years. So I don't know. To me, that's a more sound investment. But obviously, a lot
Yeah,
of people made a lot of money for the last 20 years, and
that's why
by
people
buying
do it.
pre-con.
You're buying a call option on the real estate market 4 or 5 years from now. That's what you're doing. And then you
Yeah,
have to hope that prices continue on this trajectory, and then, oh, the interest rates are also going to align. There's a lot of moving parts there. But, you know, as you mentioned, if you could double or triple your deposit amount over the course of 3 or 4 years, and never take out a mortgage, you
Well,
know,
people were 10xing their deposit amount. They put 20K down, they walk away with like 220,000.
it's crazy.
I mean, but the thing is, when you start hearing these stories, like, oh, this person made 400K from this pre-con, you know that's the time to stop. Like, it's not
Too late.
happening anymore because now the builders aren't selling, like they're not selling it because the builders used to sell them under value. Like if the market value was 600, they would be selling it at 500 to get you to come and buy it on paper, right? Now
Used
it's
to
like
be cheaper than resale in
yeah,
that same,
exactly. They were
for
always
comps in
less
that area. It was
expensive
cheaper.
because yeah, but there's a risk involved when you're buying it. But as every year was going on, markets kept going up. Builders are like, well, now we can guarantee that the market's going to go up. Well, they never guaranteed it, but everyone just assumed it would. So it's like, oh well, let's price it at market value. So you still made some money, and now they're selling it to you at future market value, and you're saying, well, shit, I'm going to gamble. You're literally gambling. That's what it is.
Some people
Yeah.
under 4,
High
5,
stakes.
6 floor plans, right? Yeah, you're dealing with big dollar amounts too.
I don't think I have the
So
stomach for it. That's for sure.
it's so you're better off. See, I think the thing is, like, most real estate investors are not really investors; they're speculators. The amount of investors that actually will go and take a property and put money into it and take that risk and build up that equity is few and far between, versus just people that want to get into the real estate market and go buy a condo somewhere and hold it long term. That's not necessarily a mistake, because if your plan is to carry that property for 10, 15, 20 years, if it's part of your retirement plan, it's pretty hard to lose. The
I mean,
question
Yeah.
is, like, you know, when it comes to pre-con, very risky game, very, very
Right.
risky.
And the other thing, like we talked about earlier, where condo prices are always a little bit suppressed because of the maintenance fees and associated with it. Just like an example, I was recently meeting with a client, or also a former colleague who worked together for one of these property management companies that's also a developer, and so he was able to buy or get a unit kind of at a VIP employee pricing. And now, and when he bought, it was still kind of, it's still appreciated in value, but when he's looking at right now what those units are selling for, because now the project is complete, and yes, it's gone up. He's able to make money on it, but when he's saying, when you factor in all the additional development charges and taxes and everything else, and even if you were to try and flip it and pay real estate commissions and legal fees, all that stuff, like, it's really not as much of a profit. So I think if ultimately people investing in real estate, they should really be looking at it as a long-term investment. That's always the best approach. Anything less than that, there's no get rich quick schemes in life, and
In
real
anything,
estate
yeah.
real estate is certainly not one that I would recommend either.
You might be better off to go put your money into an S&P index and just make 10% of your money every year.
Hey, you can
With
also
with
bet
no
on
headaches, no
you can
headaches.
you can also bet on the 49ers to win the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's right. I guess you'll be watching in a few weeks.
Yeah, that's my team. That's my team. I'll be rooting for them.
Christian
Not putting
McCaffrey.
any money on them though. I can't. It's
What,
already
what,
stressful enough to
what's
watch as it is.
what's McCaffrey's streak now? What is he at? Like 25 games in a row with a touchdown scored?
Yeah,
Something
I saw
ridiculous like that,
he
right?
broke Jerry Rice's record. I think somebody else held the record as well for most consecutive games with
You
a
think Brock you
touchdown,
think Brock
or
Purdy's
most TDs in the season.
you think Brock Purdy's gonna get it done?
You know what? He's shown me something these last 2 weeks where to bring them back
Were
from.
you always a believer in Purdy? Come on.
I tried to be, like, again, I watch every game, so
Yeah, yeah.
I see, like, how he plays, and he pushes the ball downfield. But hey, this is a real estate podcast, so
But guys, I guess
Good
what
luck. Good
Eugene is
luck.
trying to say is that the Super Bowl party at his house on
yeah,
That's right.
come on over. Yeah,
awesome.
Right on.
Well, honestly, thank you for coming on. We really
Yeah,
appreciate
appreciate
it.
it.
yeah, it's my pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
And then just don't forget to like and subscribe this video and
Like and
leave some
subscribe,
comments.
please.
Eugene would love to hear your experiences with your property management. It'd be fun to reminisce on that, right? A little bit.
Oh, it's always fun time. I think whenever I get together with some of my former colleagues and friends, we always kind of share those laughs, and it never gets old.
That
I
I bet.
bet.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and That's the episode, guys.
See you next week.
All right, guys. Thank you.